Happy Monday and welcome to the In the Back Pocket Review Show. Zach, Kate, Browny, a warm welcome to everyone except our pesky YouTube commenter. Is he right when he says this? Let's have a look at what got commented under the YouTube video last week. I feel like Browny, Zach, and maybe Kate all hate Felix. Ha, ha, ha. Is this true?
Yes, Les 21. Well, we've got one follower, and that's Yes, Les 21. I'm not sure if he speaks for all of us, but...
Well, I'm glad that mine wasn't definitive. It was maybe Kate.
Is that what I would have expected?
Definitely YouTube.
It sounds like he's got credible sources.
Yeah.
Not sure who the leak here is.
Yeah. He seemed to have been liking a lot of Irish music videos outside of those couple of comments.
You're always
Zach.
big on the fact that they tried to paint you as the bad guy in The Bachelor.
Yeah.
Are you still standing by that?
No.
Or are you just a bad guy?
Are you getting a bad edit on this too?
A lot of people that know me say that was just a good edit. So that's it. I thought you scrubbed up pretty well. No. Anyway, let's get to the
Funny
thing.
how they portrayed him to be a good guy and you to be a bad guy in that sort of
It is
TV
funny, isn't it,
world.
Nathan? Yeah. I appear to be getting a bad edit on your other show as well that have been going. But let's get back on track here. The footy multi-wins we've had, certainly not that. Let's have a look at the multis that have been won this week, because one of the punters, again, had a very, very nice one. Sally DeGoat, 1081. Please, people, please make a normal username when I've got to read these out as a professional host. I don't have to read out Sally DeGoat. 081. $94. A pretty decent one there.
That is a good one, 94
Again,
bucks.
just across the one game as well.
1081.
Remember, you can follow all these clowns on the feed yourself as well. Kate, Zach,
Or
and
Sally
Browny.
DeGoat if you want.
Or Sally DeGoat 1081. But let's crack onto the footy right now because it was a fantastic round. The winning margin in round 9 was 10.4 points. A draw included in there. It was a fantastic round overall.
It was a good round of footy. I went down to Geelong. I saw him chip. Wasn't great at chipping the golf ball, but that was a fantastic game. I haven't been to many good games at GMHBA Stadium, but that was just about the best I've ever seen down at that field. And why it was good? It was open. It was free. There was not a lot of stoppages, and it was just a good game of footy against two sides who used the ball well.
Yeah, it was uncharacteristically open in the middle of the ground. Both teams' ability to transition was fun to watch. I'm not sure what the defensive breakdown was that allowed it to happen and made for great spectacle. And if you're looking for a good game down the Cattery, just wait for GWS to come to town because that's 5 in a row, I think.
They've got the longest winning streak there now, the current
the Cats.
streak. So 5-0 GWS.
Remarkable.
Most teams go there and can't win. So they've got the winning formula.
No Tui, no Cats.
There we go. A lot of
I
people
did play
have
in
been
the
saying
4
that.
previous defeats.
Let's. What's hot and what's not, Brownie? Who's playing
Who
well?
is hot and who is not? Well, let's have a look at Hawthorn first because Nick Watson at the moment, 7 of his last games, the MCG, 2+, 3 of his last 4 games in general, 2+. He's $1.82 to do that again this week. You've got Riley West, who's playing great footy at the moment. Hasn't always been a goal kicker, but 4 games in a row now, 2+. Who's not? Dylan Moore at the moment. This time last year, we were singing his praises, but he's not hot at the moment. 0 of the last 5 games at 2+, so I'd be stepping around Dylan Moore. And Nick Watson, just a running machine. I know we think of Nick Watson as a small forward who gets at the front of the packs, but he works genuinely hard as a small forward to get where he needs to go.
Where do we sit on the Hawks overall at the moment? Of course, great start to the season. They dropped off a little bit. They've got a tough schedule coming up. Where do you sit, Kate?
I think they're just doing enough at the moment, and there's a few teams that probably fall into this category of they're 7-2. Some of those games that they've won haven't been pretty. The game against Melbourne on the weekend was not pretty at all. They sort of just hung in there. They were lucky that Melbourne didn't kick straight in the second term because I think they kicked 2 goals 7. Hawthorn kicked 2-1, so they went in with a 1-point lead at half-time. But their next 5, they need to start to really hit their straps. So they've got the Suns in Darwin on Thursday, the Lions at the G, the Pies at the G, the Dogs at Marvel, and then the Crows at UTAS in Tasmania. So I think we'll get a really good gauge in the next 5 weeks about what the Hawks are doing, but they're sitting pretty at the moment, 7-2. You can't complain about that.
Tough one coming up as well against the Gold Coast in Darwin as well. Just an early look at that market, Brownie. Which side do you like?
Well, Gold Coast have been up there all week, so they'll be acclimatised to it. They played really well the other night, even though that the Dogs came home hard at them. Midfield battle is huge here. I look at Hawthorn's midfield every week and I go, I don't think it's a strong midfield, but they get the job done week in, week out. So there's no huge players in there when Will Day goes out of that side, but they've been able to stand up enough. But I look at that Gold Coast midfield and I think if they're a chance, I think they take the Hawks to the cleaners through the midfield in this game, and I think the Gold Coast Suns win.
What about the Swans? Rolled by Essendon, and the final margin was a lot more favourable to the Swans. They brought it back late. I think the Dons didn't kick a goal from halfway through the third quarter moving on. But they're looking pretty good at the moment. Are we reading more into Essendon here, or are we reading more into the Swans?
Well, personally, I'm not sold on the Bombers just yet. I think the Swans have had some well-documented issues to handle this year with personnel, not performing anywhere near their best with the personnel that is available. In terms of Essendon, the win-loss ledger looks not too bad for Essendon, but if you look at who they've actually beaten, the couple of goals against Port, who aren't going too great. Melbourne was a 39-point win. That's pretty impressive. But then 3 points to North Melbourne, 2 points to West Coast, and just about held on against a struggling Swan side. And when they have come up against the stronger teams in the competition, your Hawks, Crows and Pies, they've had an average losing margin of 42 points. So
it's not pretty.
Doing what they have to do to get the ledger looking okay, but I'm just not there with the Bombers just yet.
Need to find some tools as well. Another tall player going down with the ACL injury on the weekend. Lewis in his debut, which is really disappointing. They've lost, obviously, Draper. They've lost other tools there. So they've got Todd Goldstein. He's the one that's having to really roll through there. But they're getting really low on their defensive stocks. To their credit, they're still winning games with it, but they can't afford to lose any more big men and need to pick up some in that mid-season draft.
Who's hot and who's not? Who are we backing? And Archie Roberts for the Bombers at the moment, he's going absolutely great guns. Their whole back line is getting a lot of the football. So if you're looking at the Bombers this week, you'd be looking at most of their half-back, back pocket types, even the Red Dog, Mason Redmond. Matt Roberts at the Sydney Swans, 4 of his last 5, 25 plus. He takes the kickouts, so I'm going to back him every week. And Isaac Heaney, 1 of his last 5 games. His AFL rating at the moment is so much lower than what it was last year. He and Chad Warner. Isaac Heaney, 1 to 43. Chad Warner, 45 to 14. That's impressive. 132 to 139. I don't know how Chad Warner's gone up. I don't believe those ratings for a second.
but Sydney overall right now, where do you sit? Because I'm pulling my hair out. We get the win over GWS, and again, we got the win. We fought hard. I was out there in my shorts. We got the win over GWS. All of a sudden, I'm thinking, okay, here we go. It's going to click in emotion, and then we fall down again in a game that, in my opinion, we should have won. Anything jumping out to you more?
Defensively, you're not as hard as what Sydney. You go to a game and you expect Sydney to be absolutely rock solid, hard through the defensive hard, and at the moment they're not. They were just allowed to waltz out. When you were seeing so many Essendon players, like I think McGrath had 38. You had Redmond had 32. Somebody else had 35. Nick Martin, like that's very un-Sydney-like. Just to allow so much ball, easy ball coming out the back line. I thought Essendon probably should have won by more.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, it was all their fault. Was it no goals? I said third quarter, halfway through the third quarter, right to the end there, and I was certainly yelling at the TV during that. The Western Bulldogs taking on Essendon. This is a real game for the Dons fans where they'll be thinking, okay, well, there's no point getting this one when you've got to back it up with something good, and the Dogs, one of the hottest teams in the competition right now. $1.28's awfully short.
Yeah, I think they're coming off the loss, obviously, up in Darwin. They did fight hard against the Gold Coast Suns, who are proving very difficult to beat when you go up to play them in Darwin. But this one back at Marvel, I think they regroup. I think one thing you can't discount, though, there's a huge amount of fatigue coming into this one for the Bulldogs, because up there, very hot, humid conditions. I think if there's a chance for Essendon, it's sort of in that second half, if they can run out the game a little bit more than the Bulldogs can. But I still think the Bulldogs, I think they're heavily favourites, obviously, $1.28 to $3.73. That's a fairly big price. So probably on Thursday we'll have a look at the line, see if there's any chance of getting on there with Essendon. But I think the Bulldogs will be too strong in this game.
Here's a stat that's got nothing to do with punting. Essendon and the Western Bulldogs, they are their arch enemies. Scott West and Ricky Ollerenshaw lived on the back fence of each other. One went to the Bulldogs in when they used to do the zoning. One went to Essendon. Ollerenshaw went to Essendon. Scotty West went to the Bulldogs. Their back fence was the dividing line.
That's interesting. What sort of fence was it?
It was one of those paling fences, you know, the old brown ones. Yeah,
I know those
and
ones.
they had the pails, the 3 pails on one side that you could jump over, but not on the other side.
Oh, sometimes they get those fences where they sort of automatically age it with the flame. Looks fantastic.
No, I've never seen that.
No, you should. You should look into it, especially with your renovations. You should look into it as well. What about, Kate, I consider you one of the best analysts in sports in general in Australia. I think you nail it every single time. Browny, you're not too bad yourself. You guys sent out the warning of Zach Merrett. Bear Jordan Order was going to take him over.
Yep.
And you know what
I
happened?
put a list of his victims up.
You did.
For everyone to see.
Easiest unders of the week, of the year, of the month, of the decade.
Well, I got bad news for you because
nobody listened.
He was the most backed player of the round.
Well, obviously he was backed for unders. Obviously the most backed player for unders?
No.
25 plus.
plus.
Oh, come on,
People
guys.
are going 25 plus disposals.
We do this for a reason. We have the Thursday show. We come in. I even put his rap sheet up. He's Gave you a new nickname and you still couldn't come on board and back in for unders. But I understand maybe why you wouldn't listen, because the next one we've got is a bad beat of one of my bets.
Darcy Cameron, that was a tough watch and you were quick. There was a couple of early crows in the WhatsApp group this week, but this one was another one.
Well, no, actually, this one was, I was absolutely devastated to see him line up. The first centre bounce of the game, guess who's taking the ruck? Mason Cox.
Cox?
Oh, he's in there, and they wait till sort of the second quarter to put Darcy Cameron into that ruck rover role, because we said leading into it, Fremantle ranked 17th for disposals against the ruck.
Then he started racking them up.
Guess how many he got? Guess how many he got? 19. 19. If he just spent maybe 5 more minutes in the ruck in the first quarter, would have got that 20 plus, but that is a bad beat for me.
You know what I really love? When I'm listening to the game at home and I'm watching the game on the TV and somebody gets their 25th possession late, and you can actually hear the crowd or a group of people who have backed somebody for 25 plus, and you hear them audible cheer together for the 25 touches.
Didn't Kano almost slip up on TV in reference to player going 25 and a goal during the commentary? Yeah, I think that's a different type of talk right there. But in this one, the Coleman medal as well, Jesse Hogan on absolute fire. I believe he finished with 7 on the weekend.
You believe right.
You believe right. Take us through this one, Brown.
Ben King, though, he's got a game in hand and he is still 2 goals in front. So they didn't play in the opening round. So still a game in hand for Ben King. Jack Gunston's been the big mover. He's on 23. Jesse Hogan on 27. Ben King on 25.
You say he's got a game in hand, but Jesse Hogan's actually only played 6 games to get to the point where he is on 25 goals just behind him. So if he can stay fit, I see this as Jesse Hogan has his hands on the Coleman at the moment.
It feels like he'll kick more bags of 4 and 5 than anybody else. So he might have the odd cold week, but he'll bounce back with a big bag. He feels like he's the one most capable.
It's amazing, especially with forwards, when you talk about when you say, oh, this player's no good or whatever it is. It's all about the environment. You look at, Jesse Hogan at Melbourne, that first year was fantastic. Goes over to Fremantle, nowhere to really be seen. Goes over to GWS, he's playing like the best forward in the competition right now. It's amazing that how much difference the environment can make.
Especially as a forward, it depends, and this sounds like a massive cop-out for forwards because I was a forward, but a lot of the service coming in does depend on your output. So if the ball coming in is not kicked to your advantage, or your mids aren't getting on top of the clearance, or they're not getting clean breakaways from stoppage, at times you can be in all the right areas, all the right spots, the ball sails over your head, goes straight to your defender and you can't get near it. That's within reason. Obviously things have changed for Jesse Hogan within himself, not just the service of the ball coming in, but that is something that's really important when you change environments as a forward as well.
He was a star at Melbourne though. He kicked 60 goals at an early age. I'd think that Jesse Hogan would be the first to admit that he didn't present himself as an AFL footballer when he's at Fremantle, but given another chance at the Giants and he's taken it with 2 hands.
Brownie, I move forward with excitement and a little bit of trepidation because Brownie's expectation ladder
sort of brings something a little bit different to the table. So when you come up against a side, you're expected to win. So example, Carlton and Richmond in round 1. Carlton are expected to win that game and win it comfortably. So you can get a +1, a +2, a +3 or an even. So this is the expectation ladder. And at the moment, Adelaide on my expectation ladder on the games they've won are on +7. I look at Melbourne and Fremantle all the way down the bottom. So obviously a lot of games that they were expected to win that they have coughed up. Richmond, 8th at +2. Nobody expected them to be 3 wins at the moment. So even against West Coast Eagles on the weekend, they both got an even. So I thought, that game could have gone either way. So even that is the expectation ladder. Got nothing to do with anything, but it's a bloody good expectation.
It's got nothing to do with anything. That's a strong endorsement of your own product.
Yeah, I quite like that. I went in with low expectations. My expectation ladder had that one quite low, but I think that's fantastic. It also reminded me
our expectations.
of my golf scorecard on that left side.
So what did you give my expectation ladder? A +1, a +2 or a +3?
I'll give it a +3. And I think I'm going to be excited to move through this journey with you as we continue to build the expectation ladder.
Each game within the 9 of them. So
fantastic. Hold
Add
that
it
thought.
to the report card.
Because Daniel Hoyney is coming up right now.
Is he?
Hoyney. 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 Hoyney, that's the man we have right here. Daniel Hoyney, the king of champion data and the puppet master of the AFL. Welcome in.
G'day, Felix. Good to be here.
As always. Now, the Crows, they were fantastic in the showdown, or the throwdown, as I was referring to it for a while. Are you still on the Crows train? You like what you're seeing?
Yeah, absolutely, on the Crows train. And I think sometimes it's almost as important to get a win when you haven't played exactly the way that you want to play, which is what Adelaide did on Saturday night. Pulled Adelaide through the kitchen sink at them, destroyed them from clearance. But the main reason as to why they get over the line is what Adelaide is doing outside of clearance. And we talk about it on this show a lot. That's 65% of their game. So you look at their whole profile so far that year. If that continues that way, and we're talking about that profile in 3 to 4 months' time, they are going to be in this competition right until the end of the season. And the most important aspect, we revealed last week the real ladder that we go off, the turnover ladder. Right now, they are number one in that. They've outscored their opposition by 180 points off turnover. So to put that into a little bit of context, over the last 10 years, there's been 13 teams that have outscored their opposition by over 170 points off turnover at this stage of the season. 10 of them have gone on to make a prelim. All of them have gone on to make at least a semi-final. So that is like the clearance game. A lot of people talk about the clearance game, how important it is. Yeah, it's important, but just keep it in context. It's 35% of the game. That is the game. If you are not good in that area, forget about it. There's no better team in the competition right now than them.
Have you been working out? You're looking very big.
And I thought that's why.
Tight top.
I thought that's why I'd bring a polo in today. The wife said to me, she said, "No, whack on a polo," and we did. We embrace it.
What do we say about history on In the Back Pocket?
Well, back history.
If it tells you anything, that's what.
Are you guys, after hearing the data there, are we as bullish on Adelaide at the moment?
Yeah. Oh, I love what they're doing. Yeah, with and without the footy. I think we'll get a good gauge through some of the colder months and the wet footy if the 3 talls is going to remain in place. But their coach has said that. He's open to playing with less talls and what works. But at the moment, why would you change it when it's working?
Yeah, this is the Adelaide I expected to see a couple of seasons ago when it looked like they were trending upwards, had a lot of really young talent, had a down year last year, said at the start was prepared to give them a mulligan. The 3 talls in the forward line, they do seem to be making that work, and history says it's a real challenge to get that working, but that's something they've got going.
Yeah, no, they do. And it's always, I think it's important to sort of, back what's actually on your list as well and not be afraid to be different. And they are different in that aspect of the game. How that tracks over the next 3 or 4 months is going to be interesting.
Where do you see their weakness?
I think still behind the footy at times they can get challenged from an individual sense. As a collective system, they are as strong as any other team in the competition. But individually, if you can go at them quickly, like Geelong did 4 or 5 weeks ago, potentially that's where they can get exposed.
What about the Hawks? Because I'm interested to see the data here, because we hear everyone, when you get a young and maybe a bit brash team, you get people saying they're overrated, they're arrogant, they're cocky. What does the data say about them at the moment?
I find Sam Mitchell fascinating, and he gives you a lot of insight. In the first 4 or 5 weeks of the year, he was telling the industry, we are not going that well, but the industry didn't want to listen. People didn't want to believe it. No, they're flying, they're favourites. They won't. What they were doing with the footy, so offensively, it was actually the 5th worst profile in the competition. Their ball movement, which was their game last year, was bottom 4 in the competition. Now, over the last 5 weeks, they've got that back to be the 2nd best ball movement team in the competition. They have had a very nice draw over the last couple of weeks to actually get a bit of confidence back. But we're seeing at stages this year with teams that have actually had that nice draw, get a bit of confidence, and away they go. Now they go to up to Darwin on Thursday night. Then they've got a bit of a tricky month after that. Just be interesting to see how real this offensive profile is coming up against some better opposition teams.
And on that next 5, so they've got the Suns, then they've got the Lions, the Pies, the Dogs, and the Crows.
Ooh,
so I feel like they've needed to be sort of working towards this point. In those last 5 weeks, they've had West Coast, Richmond, Melbourne. So I think we're going to know in the next few weeks how real Hawthorn are, but I think they're just doing enough. And what we've said for every other team in the comp up until this point, you've just got to do enough at this time of the season, bank your wins, and then you want to be hitting your best footy in the next sort of month and a half leading into September.
What's a pass mark from those 5?
Oh, you'd want to see probably 3 of the 5 that they get over the line, because obviously, depending on who you're coming up against that given day, what happens, sort of the outcome the week before is having such an impact on the competition at the moment. The teams that get absolutely blown off the park the week before, the bounce back factor is huge this year. So I think 3 out of those 5, and we can happily sit here and say that they're the real deal.
I fear, as I read my rundown, that you're about to shoot Bambi.
Am I correct?
This.
Yeah, and I'm going to get absolutely hammered for this, but away we go anyway. We'll have a bit of fun. So, Nick Daicos. We've mentioned him on this show throughout the year, and his best games this year have been superb and they stand out. But the reality is, across the season, Nick is not having the season that everyone assumes that he's having. In 2023, he was the 11th highest rated player in the comp. 2024, 21st. We've never seen him rate that low in his 4 years. as what he's doing right now, outside the top 100. And when you dig deeper as to what's going on there, and I think as a competition we can probably appreciate now that you can tag this guy. Don't concede that you can't tag him, because you can tag him. We alluded to it last week. It's been tagged 4 times this year, and so 5 times this year and 4 times it's been effective. He got away from James Jordan, so hats off to him there. But what he's doing with ball in hand, he's actually the 10th worst kick in the competition this season. His accuracy in front of goal is horrible. He's meant to be going at 41%. He's going at 29% from his 17 shots at goal. So the scary thing for the comp is that their best player is nowhere near at the level that we've seen him for a couple of years, and they're still the best team in the competition. So if he can get going, which you would assume he would at some stage, what does that spell for the rest of the competition? Probably a little bit of danger. But the reality is, at the moment, he's not going as well as what I think we probably all assume that he is.
In his defence, he has somebody hanging off him the whole game, and there's someone within 6 inches the whole game. The rest of the 36 players out in the field, or pretty much 34 players out in the field, are probably playing within 5 metres of each other. They've got room to move. Every time Nick Daicos gets the ball, he's under the pump. I'd dare to say those 2023 numbers, a fair bit of half back where he's got the room to move. Last year, didn't get tagged as much, but played pretty much on his own. This year, I feel like the tagging has got those numbers where Nick Daicos is at the moment. I feel like he bounces back. Tough marker.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. And I think I love the Collingwood and Nick Daicos mindset, where Craig McRae has said it for 18 months, and I've heard Nick say it sort of so often this year, bring on the tag. I want to be tagged because they can manipulate it and what have you. But I also think at the same time, if you just neglect this guy and just decide to let him go, well, good luck to you at your own will.
Yeah, so you just said that they're the best team in the competition at the moment, the premiership market. How does that, we have a look at that now as to their odds, how they're tracking with their premiership market. So they're $5 at the moment. You think if there's upside to Nick Daicos' game, that's probably only going to narrow in a little bit more if he's not playing his best footy right now.
Yeah, full profile-wise, at the moment, 9 weeks in, they have the best profile in the competition. We just spoke about Adelaide and how they're going from a turnover game as well as anyone else in the competition. But Collingwood are rounded in all aspects of the game right now. And as we just said, their best player isn't going as well as what we have seen.
Just to confirm, you said he's the 10th worst kick in the AFL.
10th worst kick in the competition this year.
It's a bit rough.
So,
Tell you what, Hoyney, usually I'm the one getting abused in the YouTube comments, but thank you for taking the heat away from me this week. Collingwood fans, we will see you down there in just a moment. Quick Hands coming up next. Welcome back to In the Back Pocket. It is time for Quick Hands, a big weekend of footy. Let's kick it off. Last night's draw says more about North Melbourne than the Lions.
I tend to agree with that. So on my expectation that I showed you before, I gave the Brisbane Lions a -1. I gave the North Melbourne Footy Club a +1. They weren't expected to do that, and they did it.
Every time we get a draw, though, we've got to play some of my favourite footage on earth. Oh, the score's a level.
Should have been a free kick, chopping of the arms.
It's 130 apiece.
Chopping of the arms.
Oh, is he celebrating?
I've never seen that.
Chopping of the arms.
He didn't touch your arms.
You know what? Hey, we were going that bad that year that we
That a draw's a
celebrated
win.
draws
Yeah.
hard.
Sang the
Worst thing
song.
about that is, there's a chance that you celebrate the draw. A lot of people make that mistake, but the fact that the camera is zoned in right on you as the siren goes is unbelievable. Richmond taking on North Melbourne this week. Do you think Richmond will finish higher than Melbourne this season? Back to you, Brownie.
Richmond finish higher than North Melbourne this season?
Than Melbourne.
Oh, the Melbourne.
Melbourne Football Club.
No, I don't.
Certainly don't.
No.
You want to lock that in? Final answer?
I'm going to lock it in.
Perfect. Well, we'll move on to the next one. Have you got anything to show us at all?
I certainly do. I like to keep receipts. They've won 3 games so far, Richmond. And Kate, this is a receipt we've kept on you.
I think Richmond under the line. I don't think they get 3 wins. I think they get 2 somewhere. They will not go through and not win a game.
That's a nasty receipt, isn't it?
I'm so glad you had to go back 9 weeks to find something I did wrong before a game of football.
the first receipt we've come up
Before a
with.
game of football was even played, we've gone all the way back. Brownie,
just
watch
own
your
it.
back.
You got it wrong. Just own
Wasn't it last week Dane Zorko won't get more than 20?
I said steer away from Dane Zorko. He ended up with 39.
Well,
There is. You've done some of your best
you're
work.
on my list now, Brownie.
You've done some of your best work on the
Everyone's got
Sunday
a
Footy
list.
Show, and there is a treasure trove of information on the U that we can throw out there. The least wins market. Is there any West Coast? Do you think $1.45 there at all?
Yeah, I think they're going to be the ones with the least wins, even though in 9 weeks I might be wrong. But yeah, I think
that up.
They had a good chance on the weekend. I think they played better footy than we've seen them play, but just weren't good enough to get it done.
Zebrafish, will Essendon win a final this year?
No, they won't. Slightly impressed with what they've done against teams they should beat, but as soon as they've come up against the better teams in the competition, they've been found desperately wanting. They will have to wait at least another year, in my opinion.
There we go. Yes, at $18. That is not pretty.
Harsh.
That does not look pretty for Essendon fans, but I'm sure they're used to it by now. The Suns, will they make the top 4?
I don't think they will make the top 4. I think other teams are playing a little bit more consistent football at the moment. But, I mean, footy, 9 weeks ago I said that Richmond wouldn't win 3 games. So I don't think they'll make the top 4. I think they definitely will make the top 8, though.
It's a tough run.
It is a very good run, isn't it? It is tough, but I like the Gold Coast Suns at the moment. They're playing some pretty good footy, and I think they win this weekend.
Zach, you've been fantastic. Kate, even better. Brownie, you're off camping tonight.
I am. I can't wait for it.
Pizza oven, camping, Brown. Yeah. It's all happening. Thank you very much for tuning in. Remember, follow all these guys on the feed.
Imagine what you could be buying instead. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.